Hey guys, what's up? My name's Elizabeth and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So, as you guys can see on the board, today's video is titled, What Does Your Name Mean? So, pretty much the video is all about, literally, what does your name mean? What does our name mean? What kind of importance do we have on our name? By the way, importance is a word, I think it's British. Apparently in English it's not a word, I guess. I don't know. Anyhow, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I actually have my computer over here for my notes because I really wanted to remember this kind of information and be able to keep it into a short time video. So with that being said, let's dive in and get started. Okay, y'all, so many of you may or may not have heard of Shakespeare. If you have, this is a very famous quote by him, and it is from Romeo and Juliet, and this is what it says: "What is in a name that which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet?" And pretty much what that is saying is it doesn't really matter the name of the rose, it will still smell just as sweet as it would with or without the same name. So this is kind of indicating that names do not have importance, but I would actually disagree. So this is my reason for disagreeing on this. So in Proverbs 22:1, it says, "A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, and favor is better than silver and gold." Throughout the Bible, we can see that there's Adam, who had a name which means man. We had woman, which means taken from man. We have Eve, which means living, which represents that she's the mother of all living. Emmanuel, another name for Jesus, which means God with us. Jesus means Jehovah saves. So we can see that names had meaning. It kind of represents that person's function in life. Now, you might be thinking about, what if their function change? What if something changes, right? Well, a lot of times we see in the Bible where something's going to happen or will happen, or their function or the story is kind of changing. We see that God himself changes people's name, like Abram to Abraham. Adam changed his wife's name after the curse to Eve. Sarah to Sarai. We have Jacob to Israel. Now, another thing that I want to point out is that a lot of times when it comes down to names, it kind of has the signal of authority, right? We have Adam names the animal. We have Adam names Eve. We have parents name their children. And we have God renames people as things happen. So we see that names have vital importance. What really inspired me wanting to do a video like this was actually from the Devils Arithmetic. And this is a quote from the book, page 113. And it says this: "This is my authority," Ravika said, sternly holding up her arms so that the number showed J18202. "1, because I am like you, J, because I am like you, a Jew. The 1 is for me because I am alone. The 8 is for my family because there were 8 of us when we lived in our village. And the 2, because that is all that is left now, me and Wolf, who believes himself to be a 0. But I love him no matter what he is forced to do. And when we are free, this is over, we will be 2 again. God will allow it." Really like how Ravika used the numbers, or the author when they wrote this book, used the numbers to tell her story. It told who she is, though the folks attempted to take away her life because she was living in a concentration camp at this time. She was Jew in the Nazis concentration camp. They tried to take away her identity. She kept her identity, even though they gave her a new name through the numbers. She used the numbers to represent her names. So I really like that. So I have kind of attempted to do the same thing with the meaning of my name, though it does not tell necessarily a story. It still helps to remind me what I believe and who I am. And this is where I really encourage you all to go and search up to see, what does your name actually means, because I think it's really cool when we look and discover what our names mean. I actually have a whole book all about biblical names because I have been big on that, and I like go searching through it and kind of like try to figure out what kind of names I would like to name my future children if I had children, and like try to make them have names that are like really great promises. Like David means love, Joshua means Jehovah saves, and there's some other ones that I like. I like Jade names a lot. Like male Jade names are like my top favorite names. Anything that has the on the end, like Hannah, Sarah, Judah, the sound. Anyhow, totally off the subject. So what does my name actually mean? Well, my name means God has made an oath, or Jehovah made an oath. And I really like this name because it really reminds me of God's promise. God has many promises, but it specifically reminds me of one specific promise. I'm kind of proud of having a name that kind of encompasses all of God's promise. But I'm going to read you an excerpt from when I was about 14 years old, kind of talking about what my name means, and that's another inspiration for this video, was when I did this writing. By the way, if you are someone out there who is judging my writing for like a career or a job or an interview, please, I'm going to tell you this was 14 years old, and I chose not to edit it because I was 14 and I kind of wanted to keep it just as it is. So please, this is 14-year-old me or younger and my writing. But this is kind of what I wrote about taking off the idea that Liz means God has made a promise, okay? So now we're going to look at a specific promise here. So it says this: I have two names. One is from my adopted parents, and another is what the orphanage named me. So my name is Elizabeth, which means God has made an oath or promise. My other name, which the orphanage gave me, is, I can't say this, Hong Se Zhao Hong Si, which is translated red letter yellow. Even though the orphanage just gave me a name without thinking, God was really the one who gave me the name. So what do you think of the color yellow? Hope? Sun? It reminds me of the rising of a sun, or a little spark in the dark. The rising of the sun gives me hope for a new day, a day when I can start over. Psalms 35 says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. So with that being said, when you kind of put the two together, this is what it reminds me. It reminds me of God's promise that there is joy in the morning, and not just necessarily a physical morning, as in morning on earth, but it also reminds me of heaven, because it talks about there would be no day or night. It would kind of just be all light, and that reminds me of the morning. And then weeping may tarry for a night, but joy comes in the morning. So that idea of weeping, and that in heaven there will be no tears. And so this is kind of what I wrote down to kind of summarize this. My name reminds me that God has made a promise that there is joy in the morning. Maybe not an earthly morning. I have to equate this morning to a heavenly morning when I get to heaven. As Revelation 21:4 states, He will wipe every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, no crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. However, I do want to say one thing when it comes down to my name about joy in the morning and the idea of joy. You can have joy wherever you are. You don't have to be in the morning to have joy. You can have joy in the night. I really like the part of what Paul states about being satisfied wherever he is and finding that joy. And that's something I am really learning to do. Though I know that there's joy in the morning, and though I hope for the hope and know, and I'm sure that there is a heaven, and that I have that promise that there would be a day where there's no more tears, and that brings me joy, I can still have joy in the midst of my suffering. As Paul states, I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hungry, abundance and need. I can do all things through Him who strengthens me. See, Paul is writing this verse in prison, but he's saying that through Christ, I can endure this suffering. And through Christ, I have endured this suffering. I have know and learned what it's like to be in suffering and still be satisfied. And I think that is just amazing. You might be wondering, Lizzie, you have other names, right? Your first name is Elizabeth, but we also know your middle name is Margaret, and you also have a last name, most likely, which I do. So my middle name means Pearl. This reminds me of the parable of the great pearl, which I'm not going to read, but you guys can all look it up, and I encourage you guys to do it. But it's in Matthew 13:45-46, and my last name, which I'm not going to tell you, but probably majority are all going to know it. But just if there happens to be this strange guy just searching me up on the internet, just completely random, I don't know. Anyhow, my last name means watch up. And it reminds me of how Jesus told us that we need to be on guard. We need to not become lazy because Christ can come at any moment and we ought to be ready. And it reminds me of the story of the thief in the night found in Matthew 24:42-44. And so that's what that reminds me of. So, with that all being said, what does your name mean? I highly encourage you to go search that and put that in the description box below. You don't have to put your real name in, just put what your name actually means, because I think it's cool. And see if you can kind of tell a little story through it, like Rebecca did in the Devils Arithmetic, or like what I did to try to explain a promise or something that I hope for, that I know is going to happen, like heaven, and that there is joy in the morning no matter what kind of suffering we may be going through here on earth. So with that being said, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'm hoping to maybe do a video on the names of God, because I think that's really interesting. And when we learn about the names of God, it tells us who God is. Now, I'm going to clarify this to y'all if anybody's watching this and don't know. I believe there is only one God. However, he does have more than one name. So that means like Elohim or Jehovah or Yahweh. And each name kind of is like a description for who God is, and it tells us who he is. And I think that's really important. So with that being said, I'm going to kind of wrap up this video and say thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe down below. Comment down below with what your name actually means. And if you guys want to kind of explain how that impacts your life, I would love to hear that. As always, please subscribe, push that bell button, get notifications so you never miss another video again. As always, I have a poetry website, so you guys can go check that out. And I think that's pretty much a wrap. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. God bless you, and I'll see you next time. Bye!